As a beginning watercolor artist, I didn't quite grasp the concept of consistency and value. And since then, I've learned that when you demystify those concepts, it makes all the difference in painting realistic animals and people. So we'll talk about what they are, and we've got a practice exercise that you can use to hone your skills, practice using your brush, and conquer consistency and value. Value is how dark or light a color appears. The terms you hear most often: light value means the color is going to look pale. Midtone value, a little darker. Dark value is darker yet. So light value, midtone value is like in between dark and light, and then dark values. The other word that you hear a lot is consistency. Consistency is the thickness of the paint. It's based on the amount of water that we add to the color. The terms you'll hear most often are the consistency of tea to water. And if you look on the right image, it's that lower part of the color that is very clear. The consistency of milk. There's a little less water with the consistency of milk. And the consistency of thin cream, that's even thicker. Consistency and value are related. So the consistency of water to tea will create a light value, as in the first column. The consistency of milk, it's still pretty thin on the palette. It will create a midtone value, the second column. And the consistency of cream will create a dark value. Here's an exercise that you can do to practice creating different values and consistencies and become comfortable using your brush. I'm using a small piece of Osh 140-pound cold press paper. Feel free to use your favorite paper, and I'll use burnt umber, French ultramarine blue, and permanent alizarin crimson, but feel free to use your favorite colors. I'm using the smoother side of the paper. Feel free to use either side and see which one you like better. And let's start by creating a thin consistency. I'm bringing in clean water and then pull a little bit of this is burnt umber, into the puddle. And when you're finished with that brush, rinse it in water, make sure it's clean. I'll use my small pointed round brush for this exercise. Feel free to use what you have on hand. Dip it in water, wipe it on the towel so it's clean and just slightly damp. Turn the brush to fill it with color. I like to hold my brush kind of like a pencil. It's helpful to anchor the back of the hand at the table. That will help to keep your hand steady as you paint. And I'll use the side of the brush to create a small square. This is the consistency of tea. It's a light value. Rinse your brush, wipe it on the towel. Get in the habit of doing that. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of water to this color, so it looks a little darker. This is called the consistency of milk. And that's going to create a slightly darker value. Rinse that brush, wipe it on the towel, make sure it's completely clean. And I'm adding the tiniest bit of water to the color up here. It looks like thin cream. And that's going to create a darker value yet. Rinse the brush, wipe it on the towel till it's clean. Now you can use the medium-sized brush to do this too. So really, any brush that you have on hand. We're going to bring some clean water to the palette. This is ultramarine blue. I'm adding water to create something that looks like water to tea. Use the side of the brush to create a square, and that is really pale, isn't it? That's the consistency, I would say, of blue water. Rinse the brush and wipe it on the towel. And let's add just a tiny bit of water. It's going to look a little darker on the palette. It's going to look like milk, blue milk. Turn the brush, fill it with color. Use the side of the brush to create a square of color. And it's looking a little darker. That's a mid-tone value, consistency of milk. Every time you want to rinse your brush and wipe it on the towel. Now we're adding just a touch of water. Pick up something that looks like thin cream. And do you see how dark it is? I'm using the side of the brush to create a square. And that creates a dark value. And I just rinse the brush. So here we've got the consistencies across the top and the values, light, mid-tone, and dark. Now you can do the same kind of thing if you're using a paper plate. Bring in some plain water and pull just a little bit of color into the water, thinning it out, consistency of red water to tea. You want to get rid of those drips, by the way. Use the side of the brush to create a square of color, and that is a lighter value. Now we're going to see if we can find something that contains a little less water. I'm aiming for something that looks like red milk. Now that's looking really dark. Probably could have added a little more water to the mix, but that's okay. Now I'm looking for something thicker, but not too thick. It's only thin cream. I ended up having some like goopy paint on my brush, so I just rinse the brush completely, wipe it on the towel, make sure it's clean. If this happens to you, just rinse it, and let's go back in again. I'm adding a tiny bit of water. I'm looking for something that looks like thin cream. This doesn't look much different from the other one, but that's okay. We're practicing, right? When you're finished with the brush, rinse it. Make sure it's nice and clean. Label the colors. Take notes. Here I'm just making a note to myself. And create as many squares of color as needed until you feel comfortable creating consistency and value. And take notes. So there you have it, consistency and value. And if you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. It will help others to find our channel. If you have any questions or comments or suggestions, go ahead and put them in the comments. And thank you for watching. We'll see you soon.